basically half the set was him like kind of fighting the audience and pulling his pants down.
It's
and
weird
the other
that,
half
like,
was him.
it fits the music though, like how crazy everything is, and then this old dude standing up here just screaming at you, like that totally fits with everything that's going on. Like it doesn't feel out of place, you know? You're not like, holy crap, this guy's like lost his mind yelling at me. You're just like, okay, yeah, I was expecting this.
That, my friend, is called free improvisation.
right, there we go. Welcome to the 29th episode of the Cassidin's Creation. I'm your host, Chris Deering. This is the show where I talk about bands and, mathcore and mathcore adjacent bands and public figures. If you beautiful people in chat have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them in. I'll try to read them aloud. If you would like to, you could also sub and get some of these exclusive emotes as well as early access to all the interviews before they hit YouTube and the streaming services. If you're watching this on YouTube, listening to this in your car, I have no idea what I'm talking about. The show is first shown live at twitch.tv/thecassidin's Join us every Sunday and Wednesday for the live cast. With that out of the way, let me introduce our guest tonight, who is a massive figure in experimental music. You probably know him from the Flying Lutenbachers, Encenathrack, Behold the Octopus, 7,000 Dying Rats, and roughly 1,000 other projects. Welcome in the legendary Weasel Walter. How's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain. Did I mention most of the highlights of your career, or anything I forgot?
The highlights of my career, I hope the highlights of my career are yet to happen. Whoa, hey, whoa, I'm playing your back. My parents always go through your YouTube channel, dude. I'm watching you. I don't know. I think there's still good stuff coming, and I keep working all the time, and I do as much as I can. But I started the Flying Lutenbachers almost 30 years ago at this point, and
dang, that's a long time,
a new album will be out in April, and we're still doing stuff, and it's getting crazy again. So,
man, that's wild. 30 years. Like, how does that feel to you, man? That you've had this going for so long?
It feels fine and dandy. It's really, the Flying Lutenbachers is a vehicle for my anti-social music making, depending on what I'm into at the moment. Right now, the new stuff it's a 5-piece band, and I'm not going to tell you who's in it because that's a secret, but we just made a new album called Negative Infinity that'll probably be out in April or May, and we're kind of going back to this brutal prog sound of hyper-composed, material. The last few albums were kind of more no wave-ish fusion kind of punk jazz stuff, but I don't know. I just wanted to write a bunch of music, a bunch of songs, so that's what it's going to be. It's pretty rigorous.
Well, it's good. So when did you start the Lutenbockers exactly?
That was started in 1991, kind of the end of 91, when I was going to college. One of my instructors was this guy, Hal Russell, who was sort of a seminal free jazz guy, and I was taking lessons from him, which was basically us just jamming together. And he thought we should start a group, so I said, okay. His real last name was Lutenbacher, so as a sophomoric joke, we called it the Flying Lutenbachers, and it just kind of stuck. At this point, the Flying Lutenbacher is a 100-foot tall green aluminum robot that lives near the end of the universe, and it figures into the storyline of the band in certain ways, certain random, indescribable ways. So,
well, tell us about that, because I was going to ask you. Like, I know there's something about the robot and like this giant creature in the universe, or like, so is the robot fighting the creature, or what's going on?
Well, back in the first round of the band, I killed it off in 2007, kind of took a break, and then we started it up again in 2017, I think. So there's like 10 years off, and when it ended, I had this whole running line going through the last bunch of albums that had to do with the end of the Earth and then the end of a new planet, and there were these three entities that were battling each other, and I don't know, man. I was just making it up as I went along. It was kind of like, as I would write the albums and develop the albums, I would get ideas about the cohesiveness and what the compositions meant and how they related to these characters and stuff like that. I mean, it's just, to me, it's just a matter of creating a subtext or a metatext to the music to make it more, have more levels than just, this is music, like check out our music. I like the idea that it's a whole world, or like a cosmology or a mythology that includes
it's
the
more
music.
engaging for the listener.
Yeah, because it's an idea to move beyond the mundanity of normal life. Because, I mean, that's why some of us look to art, right? We want to see something that's a little more exciting than getting up and going to work every day. So, you know, the Flying Lutenbachers always aspired to be superheroes and superheroines. And, you know, I try to make the visual thing and the audio thing as fantastic and mythological as possible.
That's interesting that you decided to go with a storyline for like an instrumental project. It's generally something that we would have for like something with like vocals and such.
Yeah, well, I guess it maybe has something to do with the art work that I've done all the artwork for the records for the most part. One exception was Gods of Chaos, which was an extremely ridiculous collage made by the late bass player William Pizzeri. That guy is kind of a legend. It's too bad he died. But otherwise, I've done most of the artwork, and I don't know. I just sort of like, I let these things come through my subconscious, and then I make sense of them and just integrate it into the whole package. So right now, what's happening with the storyline? Well, Negative Infinity was an idea that I got for this is the upcoming album. It's an idea I got. I was sort of, there's a guy that I play with sometimes named Von Elmo, who's an older guy that was part of the 70s New York scene, and he was in these kind of no-wave bands. He had his own band called Von Elmo, and he was in a crazy band called Red Transistor. He also used to chop things up with what's it called? Chainsaws? You know, stuff like that.
I was gonna say like scissors or something, and you're just like, nah,
yeah,
man.
I was really
fucking
struggling
chainsaw.
to find the word there, but chainsaw fits it. You know, he was a total madman, but I play with him from time to time, and he's a friend of mine. And he's got these bizarre equations like X plus Y equals 0. And I thought, well, there's infinity. What would negative infinity be? And then I thought, of course, it's a negative sign with the Ouroboros around it, the snake eating its own tail. So I don't know. I'm going into some other realm with this one, but I'm not sure what the storyline is yet. But there's most of the covers are these really dark, you know, black, ominous visuals, and this one has it's this symbol on top of a bright orange cover, so it's kind of a different direction altogether. So I don't know, we'll see. I'll make sense of it and I'll let you know.
So I've been trying to keep up with all this stuff that you've been putting out, like the Flying Lutenbockers. It's hard to say that name sometimes. Yeah. The one that I like the most so far is Incarceration by Abstraction. And cool. That's one that you did everything for, right? You wrote everything and recorded it and all that stuff.
Yeah, the only thing I didn't do was the vocals on the last track. A lot of that stuff was meant to be played by the band that I had at the end with Ed Rodriguez and Mick Barr and Mike Green. But one by one, it was getting a little arduous. We had sort of the best band I'd ever had, and people were the least interested, which was having a mental toll on me. So I was sort of losing my shit. And, you know, there was a point where Ed was like, he came to me, he's like, man, I can't play this stuff anymore. Like, give it a rest. And I was like, you're right. Absolutely. But I had all this material left over. So I thought, well, you know, I have to make this record because I got to get this stuff out of my system. So yeah, I mean, I hunkered down and I recorded everything, and that's what it is. I thought it would be good to have the last song by the Flying Lutenbachers be the only song with vocals on it. So
yeah, I was gonna say, you know, like that last song is maybe the best one on the record. Why aren't you having like a vocalist? Oh, we just lost him. This was happening earlier. We're gonna see if he can come on back. Oh, live television. So let's go back to me for a second here. So how's it going, chat? Got any questions or anything? Oh, here we go.
1, 2.
Hey, we
Wow.
got him. He's back.
How do I sound? Do I sound pretty?
Yeah, you sound beautiful.
You know, I've
man.
only had a smartphone for 2 months, as I told you. I'm a real Luddite. I'm like, how does Grandpa's trying to work this crazy thing here? I don't know. Regardless, that song the first time was something that I'd written for this crazy glam rock band I was in the 90s called Vanilla. And I wanted to use the music. I thought it was in sort of this like King Crimson kind of vein, and I thought it would be a good end of the world song.
Okay.
So I actually approached this guy, Jonathan Joe, who played in the band Vanilla, and I said, look, you know what's going on with the Lutenbockers. This is the last song. It's got to be real apocalyptic. And he went away and he came back with all the lyrics and vocal lines, and he worked the mythos of the band into it. And I think it's brilliant. I mean, he basically co-wrote the song with me, and then he went about recording all the vocals, and then I mixed it, and bam, that was it. We did play that song as an instrumental on the first tour that we did in 2017 when we came back. I'm not opposed to playing it. I don't know.
But why not have a vocalist on like all of your material? Like it would be so much crazier with some guy just like screaming over it or whatever.
You know, I've never been. I like singing and I like singers, plenty of them. But I always found that my Achilles heel with writing was vocal melodies and lyrics. I just don't. I leave that to the pros, basically. I can do anything other musically, like compositionally, doesn't matter. I can deal with it. I just can't do it. It just seems so weird to me. So I think in a way, the Lutenbockers being mostly instrumental just reflects that. It's not my strong suit. So I don't know.
Okay.
There's plenty of bands with vocalists. I like the idea that our music can evoke something without having this person in front as a focal point, you know, because usually singers, people pay a lot of attention to them as if they're the focus of the band. I don't think there's any focus in this band. There's whatever focus you want to give it. But for example, the new band, which is a 5-piece band, there's no lead instrument. The saxophone is not the lead instrument the way you would expect it. It's kind of like a big wall of chords in front and then a drummer in the back. You know,
Okay.
It's very integrated. So I guess in a way, I'm trying to mess with the expectations that people have and my own expectations, and trying to get out of the box a little bit. I don't think I'm trying so hard to be super original. I just do what I like. But, you know, when you think of it compared to other bands, I guess can be pretty far out there at times, I suppose. Whatever. It's like I just make music I like mostly. That's the main motivation.
So why did you stop the Lutenbockers back in 2007?
It was, we were rehearsing a lot and we were playing this really complex material, and for some reason we were in California at that point. We lived mostly in Oakland and San Francisco, and being out there is a little isolated. We were touring, but you know, when you're all the way on the West Coast and most of your stuff is in the Midwest to East Coast, it's a little more of a problem to tour, and getting over to Europe's a little more of a problem. So I think us being out there, the scene kind of dipping, and we just didn't have a lot of support locally anymore. It got pretty stressful for me to be asking these guys to put so much effort into learning this hard music and then having these really crappy shows on the West Coast with bad turnouts for all of a sudden. It's just like a mystery. Like it just, woo. I thought we had the best band we ever had, and it had the least amount of people interested. You know, there's some irony there for you. Oh, needless to say, we shot in 2005, we shot a live performance with 3 cameras, and we did board audio for it. And that thing's called Live Cataclysm. And I've been sitting on that for 15 years, but it's going to come out soon with the reissue of our album Cataclysm. So that's going to be a real deluxe package. Some guys that are doing these reissues in Italy, they said, what's next? I said, well, It's going to be Cataclysm with the Spectral Warrior EP on it, and we're going to put out the live DVD. And they said, okay, so probably be out in 4 months. And it's going to be devastating, you know. I've been waiting and waiting to put this live video out, and I didn't just want to throw it on YouTube, you know, and have it be ignored. So it's exciting to me, after having waited this long, to be able to release it properly and try to get people to check it out and appreciate it for what I think is a great lineup of the band at its peak. So it's
Dude,
cool.
nice. That's going to be sick.
Yeah.
So why did you bring back the Flying Lutenbachers?
I had been thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. And I knew that there was something that I wanted to say with it, because that's what it is. It's a vehicle for me to explore my extreme music fixation. It's a brand, you know, and I didn't want to come back and do it in a cheap way just to capitalize because the name had a little reputation. I wanted to make sure when I came back, it would be really something that would be the Flying Lutenbachers. So I hemmed and hawed about it for years. And finally, these French guys came to me and they said, hey man, if you want to do the Flying Lutenbachers, we can book you at a festival and we'll get you a week of shows. And that was the thing that kicked me in the ass, because I was like, well, geez, am I going to turn this down? You know, their offer was very good. It was an offer I couldn't refuse. So I basically thought, okay, well, let's get the ball rolling. So I put a new trio together, and we basically did a greatest hits set. You know, we were playing about an hour to 70 minutes per night of stuff from the entire range of the back catalog that I thought I wanted to play. And we learned it, and we had a good tour. But what I learned from it was I didn't want to look back so much. It was interesting to play the old material after all this time on a formal level, but I can't say I really enjoyed it that much. I wasn't really feeling it. We played our asses off, but it wasn't. I could tell that I wanted to move forward, and I didn't want to depend on the old material because I just wasn't feeling it. So I took another break, and then I thought about it, and I put a band together with my friends, who are all crazy people and great instrumentalists, and we started putting together the new essence of the Flying Lutenbachers, which was the last two albums we did. First one was called Shattered Dimension, and the second one was called Imminent Death, and those both came out in 2019. And they're more improvised than the stuff we were doing when we killed it off in 2007, but it's
You're breaking up pretty bad.
going back. The band in the last few years has been going from yeah, I mean,
Oh, no, you're good now. You're good now. We can hear you. Your
more
video's
improvised
stuck.
music to a more through composed hyper complex thing. So okay, cool. Yeah,
and it's
well,
like a little
I still look
darker
pretty.
now,
You guys
isn't
got
it?
to trust me on that. Okay.
No,
I don't know.
I was meaning your music's a
I
little
can see it.
darker
It looks
now.
fine on my end. Oh, is it darker? I thought it was always dark.
No,
I don't know.
Like,
I mean,
oh, what was the name of the song? The one where you repeat the. I think it's actually playing on the video now. The dun 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 dun.
oh yeah,
dun, dun.
that's called Epitaph. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well-
that one. It's on your. That's on Shattered Dimension, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So like
that's-
that one seems way darker than what you were doing on Incarceration by Abstraction. Like when after the whole dun 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 part and the sax comes in like brrr, it's like
Yeah,
that's,
sure.
That's fucking freaky, man.
Well, there's always been a strong thread of nihilism and black humor in this band. So even when it's fun, it's kind of a grin fuck, don't you think? I mean, it's
Okay.
I'm a pretty cynical guy. I don't know if you can tell, but you know, the band has always been pretty dark because I've always had a lot of feelings of alienation.
Okay.
You know, there's a theory that scientists have that trauma is passed down through your DNA from your descendants. And I come from a pretty interesting working class family. Most of the guys on my dad's side of the family fought in wars. So I think part of this aggression I have is handed down, not directly. They might, for example, my father, he never laid a hand on me. He wasn't a violent guy in that sense. So, but I think some of this aggression I have and some of this anger and alienation has been passed down through my DNA. I think this concept is going to be something that's going to get worked into the storyline somehow. Now that we're talking about it.
Okay.
Now that I'm thinking about it, now that I'm discussing it with you, I'm feeling like this might have something to do with the next album. I didn't realize it till this moment. Thank you.
Hey,
I'm
you're
glad I
welcome,
did this
man.
interview.
I'm here.
See, sometimes you just got to pull this stuff out of the air. Like it comes and it appears when it's like inspiration. The reason behind doing these things sometimes come to me after I do them. So, I go with it. I just go with it.
Well, talking about going with it, how much of the music is improvised and how much is like written? Like when you play live, I imagine there's obviously a decent amount that's improvised, but is it like 50% of it? Is it like 80%?
It depends on the album and what I'm interested in doing. For example, Shattered Dimension, I would say that is about 85% improvised and 15% composed. That set of compositions were very loose because I had a bunch of improvisers and I wanted to kind of let them loose. Like, the compositions would wind them up to do a certain kind of improvising, and then we would explore that, or maybe have solos or, sections where people are doing different things. So it was kind of like an arranged chaos with Shattered Dimension. Like that song you talked about, Epitaph, that's probably the most composed thing, but it's very loose in the sense that, you play this, and then...
And we just lost.
Motivic. It's an idea of, okay, you have this dun, 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 and you have a soloist on top, and you can deal with dynamics, and there's tonality and things like that. So sometimes it's good to have a really simple idea that you can let the instrumentalists expand upon and improvise on. The album after that, Imminent Death, was totally improvised. In fact, we didn't all play at the same time. Like that's not a live band at all. That was all done totally overdubbed. And I wanted to make an album in the vein of 70s Miles Davis, but I wanted to do it in my destructive, modernist, nihilist style. So that's my take on 70s Miles Davis, and it's a total studio creation. I mean, when we were recording the basic tracks, Tim and Brandon Seabrook were looking at me like, is this what you want? And I was like, yes, it's fine. Just keep going. And then Henry Kaiser flew in some parts and I edited through his stuff and found what I wanted. And then I brought in Matt Nelson to do all the overdubs, and I did a few overdubs, and I just edited the thing until I had it exactly the way I wanted to. And then bam, there you go. Another double album. I don't think I'll make an album like that again anytime soon, but it's just, this is what the Flying Lutenbachers is. It has to have some inspiration behind it. There has to be something I want to accomplish with it, or I don't do it. And in this case, I had this thing for decades where I was like, oh, I want to make a record like this. And I finally went and did it. And that was the whole reason to do it. As opposed to rehearsing and writing music, I spent a lot of time editing that record and making it the best kind of perfect record I can make it. The record is, I would say it's 80% composed and 20% improvised. Most of it's written. What's in style this season, I like it all. I think there's something to be said with everything from free improvisation to total through composition, Just depends on what you want to express.
So what about the one you did on your own, Incarceration by Abstraction? Is that all written, or were you improvising in that one?
It's mostly written, but there's a lot of noise on top of it. For example, something like Cryptomission, that's totally through notated as far as the set parts go. But then you've got all these kind of electric eels and phantoms and whooshing, whirring, like alien garbage floating over the top. So, I mean, in the sense that that composition can be played the same way twice. Yes, but you can't do the noise element the same way twice unless if you basically play the tape. So it's neither here nor there. I mean, it's probably more composed than it is improvised, just because the improvisation is just the icing on the cake in that sense. And I think, that whole album is basically that way, where it's mostly through composed. The solos, a lot of them were improvised, so that's an improvised element. It just depends. I think when you hear total chaos and you can't make any sense of it, that's probably an improvised part happening. A lot of times I'll have writing and then I'll go into improvisations, and people, you try to make it seamless so that it seems like an organic whole, and it's not, sometimes. Okay, I gave you a great example. This saxophone quartet in Europe wanted to do an arrangement of the album The Void for a saxophone quartet, and they asked me if it was cool, and I said, yeah, go ahead and do it. And I should have given them the scores, because their interpretation of what they thought was improvised and written was totally off, like way off. Like they thought stuff that was written was improvised and vice versa. And I mean, I give them an A for effort, and I'm very flattered that they did that. That was very cool. But if I could do it again, I would have been like, oh, and by the way, here's the charts, just so you know. A lot of
it just ended up being completely different than from what you did.
Well, it was in the ballpark, but, for me, since I wrote those songs, structurally what they mean to me is very specific, like this part, and then this thing happens, da-da-da-da. And a lot of the dissonance that I write is particular. Like a lot of these, in the case of The Void was, the joke about The Void was people were saying that album I can write, and it's still going to be too complicated. So here it comes. And the whole idea of The Void was all these songs are written with the same material. It's like 3 kind of chordal clusters and this descending da 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 da, which is from the song called Isn't It Time by the Babies, but it's also from a Charles Ives string quartet. So there's a lot of references in there, but there's sort of, okay, so the album The Void is written from maybe 6 motivic things like chords and that descending line, and I made all the songs out of the same material. So those chords are very specific things, those clusters are a very specific thing. They're not random, they're used over and over, and I just would have thought that they would have heard that was the same chord being used in every song. I think they did in some of them, and then in other ones they didn't. I would have to review it again. But like I said, I was very flattered that they thought my music was interesting enough to take apart and dissect. But if done again, I would have given them the notes, because then they would have seen even more coherence in it, and they probably could have made something more spectacular with less effort. So I don't know.
Well, give them the good college try, an A for effort for trying to figure out your insane music.
Exactly. I don't expect people to understand every aspect of what I do. How could they? They're not me. They don't see through my eyes or hear the way I hear. So I think that it's okay for people to like whatever they like about it. It's not going to bum me out if they just like it because it sounds cool and it's loud and crazy. That's fine. All the detail is the red herrings. They're kind of stuff for me, like an in-joke, and if other people get it, great. Like if they hear the structure, great. If they don't hear it and they like the music, I'm fine with that too. It doesn't really matter,
So you do a lot of improv, and I'm going to bring up a video of you doing some stuff. At least I think this might be improv. I'm not really sure because there's some like paper going on here, but I'm going to try to
What's the title?
One second. I'm going to try to play this a little bit, like turn up the volume. If it's too much, chat, let me know. We'll turn off the volume. But it's a Weasel Walter Quintet at Legion in Brooklyn, January 8th, 2017.
Weasel Walter Quintet. Who was in that? Oh, was it, maybe it was Jamie Branch, Michael Foster, Layla Bourdre, and Brandon Lopez? Okay.
Yeah, it looks like that's what it is.
Hey, I've written down every gig I played since 1992, by the way. It's almost 2,500 gigs, so I have all that information.
Christ, man.
Oh, yeah.
Holy
man.
Shit.
I've got it all, and at some point that's going to be put as a timeline in a book, and then I'm going to fill in the stuff in between, so...
How many shows do you play a year?
That depends on the year. This year was the worst since I started, obviously. At the high point, I think I was playing about 140 shows per year. It depends. I mean, I would say anywhere from 60 to 130, depending on what bands I'm in.
God damn! So every other day you're playing a show.
And yeah, at the most insane point, I think that was only maybe like 1 year where I got to that point. But I was also in multiple touring bands, and I was doing a lot of improv stuff. So, I'd go on. I was on tour like a third of the year, and then I was doing improv shows all the time and one-off things. So it just depends how busy it is. I mean, I'm really only in one band that actually rehearses right now, which is the Flying Lutenbachers. And I don't like that. I don't like just being in one band. It stinks. It's like, I always felt like the reason to do as much as I possibly could is because I saw the bottom dropping out of everything eventually. So I thought it would always be good to be diversified, because I committed my life to making music, and I don't like to wait around. So I don't know. It's hard with the epidemic and the limited amount of socializing to even think about having another band. I'm very fortunate that we had a situation where we had a large place to practice where we could be social distanced and, not make each other sick. So that's the only reason why, knock on wood, we pulled this new album off during an epidemic. I mean, otherwise it would have been a disaster. So it's tough. It's not normal times right now, so you got to kind of roll with the punches a little.
Right. I'm
ambitious, but you can only do so much given the circumstances. So whatever. I work on stuff at home. I write. I put out a 3 CD solo record this year of unlistenable garbage. I mean, what did I say? Hyper dissonant electroacoustic music. It's challenging.
Interesting genres. So what did you?
Oh. Yeah. No, go ahead.
When did you start doing improv sets?
In high school, I was very influenced by free jazz, particularly 60s and 70s free jazz, the classic stuff. And since I was maybe about 16 years old, I aspired to play free jazz. So I was improvising in high school and recording myself doing that kind of stuff. And when I got to Chicago in 1990, I pursued it. And the original Flying Lutenbachers lineups were strongly informed by free jazz. I think that's pretty obvious. And through the years, I've kind of gone in and out of improvised and composed modes with the band. It kind of depends on what I feel like doing. Free improvising and free jazz and all that stuff, those are languages. They're language musics. And if you are an individual like myself who has what I consider to be a strong language on an instrument, I guess a lot of people equate me as being a drummer or whatever. Drums are great. They're a tool. I use them. It's fine. I have some ability to play them. But, there's some distinctive things I do on the drums, and that's my language. So the thing about improvising is you can meet up with people who have their own personal languages and interface and work those languages together. And that's when the music becomes interesting, because you get this clash or cooperation of languages together. And, it's just another way of doing things. It's not for everybody, obviously, because a lot of it is trying to avoid sounding structured. It's very free and chaotic, and not everyone can hear that or enjoy it, which I appreciate. I just have those ears. So a lot of it's just me making music I would want to listen to. I mean, that's kind of always what I do, is make music that I would personally listen to. If other people listen to it, that's great. I don't count on that. But I have to sleep at night, and I have to know I did something that was meaningful to me. So, some people like my improvised music and they don't like my rock stuff. There's some people vice versa, like some people, there's people who like XBX or X that don't like anything else I did. There's people that like, such and such band. I feel like all my music is kind of coherent as a whole, but not everyone sees it that way. I don't think I'm that diverse. Like, I think I'm kind of doing the same 5 things over and over, But, I guess some people like one of those things or two of those things, not necessarily all of them. So I don't sweat it too much. I have 200 records out. I don't expect that anyone's going to like all 200 of them. I get it,
I'd say
fine.
you do have a style that kind of permeates everything that you do. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it all sounds similar if you break it down. We got some questions in chat that I wanted to get to. Stolen
Let's
Baby asks, what is your recording process like?
It depends on the project, but I will say that it's usually done as cheaply as possible. I wouldn't have made... Am I still on?
Yeah, you're good, you're good.
Okay, I wouldn't have made 200 records if I'd done it the way most people do it. It seems like a lot of people go to an expensive studio and they dick around for days and they finally get something down and then they toy with it some more and then they mix there, and meanwhile $100 an hour is flying out the window. No. The new Flying Lutenbachers record was done, like many of them, in one day at a studio, a cheap studio that cost $50 an hour, and we banged it out, and then the Wheeze takes it home and makes sense of it. I work at home in the office, I mix. I got a pair of monitors right here I'm staring at, and I mix the stuff till it sounds the way it's supposed to mix, and then I master it myself, and then I encode the CD myself, and I do the art myself to spec, and then I send it to the plant, and then I get it back, and then I mail it out, and da-da-da-da-da-da.
God, that's a lot of work that you have to, that you're putting on yourself,
Well, there's 24 hours in the day, right?
Yeah, I guess so. You can also
I try to sleep about 8 of them. I can
also see, like, in this video in specific, you're using a handheld recorder, so, like, you're definitely going budget on some of these things.
Oh, God, yeah, well, I might be famous, but I'm not rich yet. So, to answer the question about how do I record, a lot of times it's about practicing ahead of time so that when we get to the studio, we're not wasting time. And usually most of my bands go in and very efficiently lay down what they need to lay down, and then we get out. I can record at home. I've done a lot of solo stuff at home. Systems Emerged from Complete Order by the Flying Lutenbachers was all MIDI.
Oh, wow.
With me overdubbing crazy solos on top. That was all done in my bedroom. So, it just depends on what the record is, really. I do a lot of electroacoustic weird stuff, and I just do that on my computer, like sitting here at the desk, and it just depends, really.
So when you record, like, the Flying Lutenbachers, for instance, are you all doing it, like, playing at the same time, or is it, like, individual takes?
Generally. The album Imminent Death was sort of an exception because that was a studio album. It wasn't intended to be. It sounds like a live band, but that wasn't really the process just for that album. But most of the time, yeah, we play like a band. We put on the headphones and we listen to each other. To me, I do like the energy and the alchemy of people playing music together at the same time and keeping the results, because I think that it encodes the music with more information about the relationships of the band and the music. So,
well, it's also more exciting seeing how somebody's reacting to what you're playing, right?
Yeah. There's all these like micro decisions that happen that I think are interesting, and there's a subliminal aspect of a lot of musics. Because most people in a band aren't going to play something perfectly quantized. It's going to have some kind of feel and delay and reaction and stuff like that. The new album, Negative Infinity, was done, with us all in the same room with headphones on, looking at each other, playing the songs. That's how we did it. There's no overdubs on it. There might be no overdubs on this album. So
damn, getting it all in one take.
Yeah, we just did takes, and we got enough material, and then you edit it together.
Well, y'all are masters at this point,
Well, I don't know about that. That's very generous of you. But, the idea of a record is you have a chance to make a platonic ideal of your artwork. So I do my own mixing and stuff like that and mastering, so I just work on it till it's what I want it to be, and then when I'm satisfied, then we put it out. There's no reason to put out a mediocre record because there's too much music already. So I try to make sure these things count, that they really, there's a lot of consternation. I like to be efficient. I don't, I'm not one of these people that records an album and freaks out about it for 7 years before it's perfect and put it out. In some ways, I kind of accept that there are limitations to reality, and it's like, okay, this is what it is.
Well, especially if you have experience mixing and mastering, so like what you're doing. Like I find myself, I put out my own music for my last album, man. I was just banging my head up against the wall trying to make sure the mix is correct. You know what I mean? Because you'll get it sounding good in one thing, and on another system it sounds really terrible. Is that an issue with you?
That, yes. and my advice. My 2-bit advice about this, which may not be a revelation to you, is that, really you should try to mix the thing the best you can, then hand it off to somebody who does mastering, because the thing about mastering is it's a second set of ears, and sometimes what needs to be corrected about it so that it translates to everyone's systems a little better is like usually a shift of perception, and mastering people are supposed to be in a position where they're fresh. The project is fresh to them because they haven't necessarily worked on it before, and they can hear it with new ears and say, oh, I see, there's like too much low end and we have to kind of do this and this, and they kind of put the final touch on it, send it back to you, and they go, what do you think? And either you like it or you say, you changed something. But I think it's good for most people to have a second set of ears. In my case, since I do the mixing and the mastering, I bounce it off my band members, I bounce it off ex-band members, I bounce it off my peers. The first thing I did when I got it mixed was I sent it to Colin Marston. I was like, what do you think, man? Is it too trebly? And he was like, a little bit, So, there's people that I trust who haven't heard the record a million times. I'm sick of this record. I had some issues with computer stuff that was driving me nuts, and I hope to never. I have to update. I'm so anachronistic that I'm using software that's 15 years old and it doesn't like the operating system, and I gotta move on from this stuff because it's making an album is not that fun when everything's falling apart. So I have to upgrade soon. And
you're slowly transitioning into the present with the smartphone and getting new equipment and stuff.
Yeah, I'm zodiologically and I'm not good at change. I really stick to my guns, and it's hard for me to, and I'm also, I don't like the status quo. So if people are like, hey, we're doing this, I'm like, fuck you, I'm out of here, So I know that's the contrarian in me. I can't help it. But, needless to say, I think if you're mixing your own record, you should really bounce it off other people, especially people that work with audio, because they might have that one little thing that you needed to know to just bink, pop it right in place,
Right. GTR Costas says, how much do you edit your parts? Because in prepared and electroacoustic pieces, it's truly difficult. So how much do you edit?
That depends on the project. A lot of these electroacoustic pieces that I'm talking about are completely edited. I mean, they're literally, that is the music making is the edit, which is basically what the person who asked the question was getting at. It really depends on the project. In the case of the new Flying Lutenbachers album again, that's going to come out in April, each take was edited from 2 run-throughs, because when you go to a studio, a cheap studio, and you don't have a lot of time, you're just kind of throwing up microphones and putting on the headphones and kind of going with it, and you're adjusting stuff while you're doing the take, and it's
just
a
trying
little
to hold
frantic.
on for dear life.
Kind of. It's a little frantic, and I think that's good because it really puts people to the test, and it doesn't allow you to get complacent. It's kind of come on, clock's rolling, we got to get out of here. I like that pressure in a way. Sorry if my band doesn't like it, but I kind of like it. Needless to say, mistakes do get made. So, when you do a recording like the new album, there's a few clinkers here and there or missed notes. You just fix it. You do what you have to do. I mean, if overall you've got a good performance and you've just got a few little warts here and there, what's the big deal? I mean, if you can fix it and no one notices, you're just making it be exactly what you want. I mean, it depends on the project. If you talk about Incarceration by Abstraction, that whole record was punched in because the band was basically done. I didn't have the patience to sit there and practice all the parts every day. I mean, I was punching those guitar parts in bar for bar just to get it over with. And some of them are cut and pasted from earlier repeats in the song and stuff. I mean, to me, it wasn't about the integrity. Whereas Systems Emerge, I actually did rehearse all that stuff and I played it as complete takes, and it took a lot of work. It just kind of depends on what the vibe is, in a way that sets the tone for the album. If I want a really live sounding album, then we go in and we do it live and we warts and all it. If I want something to be really hyper insane, like Systems Emerge, I spend 3 years programming MIDI, and then I spend, months and months learning these stupid guitar parts. And then, that, to me, the integrity of that album was, I'm going to try harder and do more. So that was the point of the album. In the case of Incarceration, it was fuck, my band broke up and I need to record all these songs and move on. So I'm just going to do this as fast as I can. And it's kind of it's an ambitious album, but it's also a little desolate and broken down, I think, in a weird way, for me, at least, coming from my vantage point. So these are all subtexts and metatexts of the music, the art. It's the deeper intent of what's going on and the motivations,
Well, back to improv sets. What do you say to people that say you're just hitting random things? Whenever you do improv? I would imagine that's a take a lot of people have that aren't used to improvisation.
Hitting random things. What would I say to that? Well, if I was gonna have a retort that was on that level of sophistication, I'd say, no, I'm not. Because that's about as intelligent. That's about as intelligent as that statement deserves. I mean, had it occurred to you that I'm trying to sound as random as possible and that I actually have to make decisions to sound that way? Little bit of a paradox there. Yeah. I mean, okay, let's put this in context. I have a style of drumming that I've done many, many times that is about breaking up continuity as much as possible. It almost sounds like I'm not acknowledging the other people, but what I'm really doing is I'm just exercising my sense of contrast to a high degree, where if someone's doing this thing and I know where it's going, I might choose to do the exact opposite thing because musically that sounds interesting to me. It's just my crazy head. I like the sound of disruption, and I like the sound of thinking you know where it's going and then zoom, it goes in the other direction. When I write, I try to do stuff like that.
Right, that's what essentially the mathcore scene. That's basically what the music's all about, is random twists and turns.
Sure, and some people like that, some people don't. In the case of improvised music, you could make improvised music that sounds somewhat composed. I mean, I've done things like that have a rhythmic thing that's steady, and I've done stuff like that. I've done everything, like I said earlier, from total free improvisation to hyper-composed stuff, and I've done everything in between. It just kind of depends on what you want to do. In the case of my real esoteric free improvisation, I mean, it's trying to push past the expectations of music and what you do on instruments, and whether, once again, I'm trying to make music I like. I'm not trying to be original or anything, because I don't even know if that exists. I mean, whatever. I'm just trying to do a thing that I like to do. And in the case of playing improvised music drums, I like the density or the lack of. I like the literal sounds of the disruption that comes from the instrument. I like to see how it can interact with totally different, a lot of the improvised stuff I play with acoustic instruments, ranging from violinists to bassoonists to, like what hurdy-gurdy. I've done, I've done improvised music with an incredible array, hundreds and hundreds of musicians, and I have a list of that too. And in a way, improvised music is this language thing where you're trying to create a coherent communication with different languages at the same time. Some people like it. A lot of people don't care. That's okay. It's abstract art. It's not for everybody.
So I'm currently showing a video on here. It's Kenny Millions, Damon Smith, and you at Heck Brooklyn on February 2nd, 2018. I'm not sure who the guy is with the sax, but how drunk was he during the show?
Let me think about that. He doesn't really drink most of the time.
Really? So he's just like screaming at the crowd like normally?
He might. I don't remember, but I feel like he might have been drinking that night, and he normally isn't allowed to and shouldn't because he's had substance abuse problems, so he's kind of like a,
now.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, that guy's been around forever. Kenny Millions came up in the New York improvised music scene in the 70s, and he is when he plays, he is a badass. He is one of the greatest living saxophonists I shit you not. But he's also really crazy, and he's got the shtick, and basically half the set was him like kind of fighting the audience and pulling his pants down.
It's
and
weird
the other
that,
half was him.
It fits the music though, like how crazy everything is, and then this old dude standing up here just screaming at you, like that totally fits with everything that's going on. Like it doesn't feel out of place, You're not like, holy crap, this guy's like lost his mind yelling at me. You're just like, okay, yeah, I was expecting this.
That, my friend, is called free improvisation.
Right, there we go.
And you can work the whole room. It doesn't just have to be, I'm playing my instrument. It could be the whole room. You could take over the whole room. And we didn't discuss anything about that before we did it. Of course not. But we talked about,
guys, I'm just going to go up there and scream at everybody for a minute, all right?
The only thing I said about that set before we played it was, Kenny, goddammit, you better play the saxophone a little bit, okay? Because, we showed up to do this.
They definitely have you saying that at the beginning of the video. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, it was released as a cassette, and the title is Fuck 'em If They Can't Take a Joke. So...
So how do you do improv with, I'm sure this was a thing in the beginning, probably not right now, but how do you do it without feeling self-conscious about, like, how people see you playing and stuff? Because, like I was saying, some people just don't understand it, you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Was that something hard to overcome in the beginning? Because I'm sure you're good
No.
now. No?
No.
Okay. You just said, fuck it, I'm just going to do whatever?
Well, it takes some confidence that you have something to say and that you're going to say it, and that you're confident that you can meet the other people somewhere in the middle. And it's definitely probably easier the more experience you have, because there are tactics that you can use. It's like, how there's improvised comedy. There's like rules to improvised comedy, like when someone says something, you say yes and then you extend from there. It's like you always say yes and. So it's the same thing with improvised music. You sort of, someone does something and you say yes and with your instrument. Or you could say no, but saying no, there better be a good reason to say it, I mean,
how do you say yes and no with your instrument?
Well, with most people, I say yes all the time, and I can play complex stuff on the drums and make a pizza at the same time. So, in a weird way, I can disassociate from my drumming, and I can be paying attention to what's going on in the corner of the room while I'm doing all this crazy stuff. So, I'm paying attention to the other players, their gestures, their sounds, and I'm trying to filter it through my own sensibilities. So it's kind of like deputizing different parts of your consciousness to deal with different things that are going on in the room at the same time. Like I can pat my stomach and rub my head, I mean, it's not like a big problem because, I'm very good at being aware of my surroundings because I was an improviser and I had to pay attention to my surroundings and react to things lightning fast. So I think part of the bigger picture of being a human being is I think I can kind of I have a sensitivity to my surroundings that I gained because I had to exercise these parts of my, my alertness and my reaction times and stuff like that. A lot of good improvisation has to do with confidence and ability to meet people on their own level sonically. I don't know. It's also a tradition.
Is there like a theme or something that you try to incorporate into a improv set?
Well,
or how do y'all stay on the same page?
That depends. A lot of times kind of what the other improviser's language is already, because maybe you played together or you've listened to their records or whatever. But I've done plenty of gigs where I didn't know anything about the player who I was playing with and I just got in and did it. The thing is, I have a bunch of different languages I can talk on the drums. So I'm comfortable if someone goes down Avenue A, it's like, oh, well, this thing would work better with what they're doing. So I'm just going to switch from what I'm doing and go down this other lane, I guess that's why if you're an improviser, it can be good to be well-versed in a lot of different techniques because if you have very limited technique, you either have to really double down on it and make it successful without changing it, or you should probably change what you're doing if you think it's going to help the music. It's just all these decision makings. It's almost like if you had, you had 5 people sitting around the table that were intelligent and you had some heated topic you were talking about, you'd have to figure out how to let each other take turns, right? Because a lot of improvisation is about letting the other person talk. It's not just about you going nuts necessarily. There is music like that, and I've done it. But in a weird way, when I do these improvised things, a lot of the time I don't play because I don't need to. You know what I mean?
I've seen you get up from your set a couple of times when I'm watching some of the sets that you played. You just in the middle of the song, you just get up from your stool and see over there pouring a drink or something while everyone else is going crazy. I'm like, yeah, all right, take it a little.
Well, in the case of the Kenny Millions set, yeah, there's a lot of shtick going on, and it is chaos. It all feeds into the same thing of all right, let's just transform this room. Let's make it as crazy as possible. So why not just walk away from the instrument at some point? Who cares? They can play. They're big boys. They got this. They don't need me. It's just about developing a narrative and having dynamics and densities and, all this stuff. There's, since I write music, I think compositionally when I improvise. It's all these skills that I've learned kind of feed into each other. They're not exclusive, it just depends what you want to do.
Has anyone just sucked? Anybody?
Yeah.
You've been playing with them and improving and
yeah.
It's this is dumb. Really?
And that's painful. It doesn't happen very often. I've had a few where I was like, oh Christ, this person stinks. I can't do anything here. I don't like those ones. Luckily, they're very rare, and I think it's because usually people who play with me are pretty experienced. And I think a lot of people are scared of me. They think I'm this big asshole or something. And sometimes I am, yeah. I have an ego of some sort, but I don't think it's out of control. But, I'm very secure. I'm an aggressive player, and I'm secure about what I do. So some people, that's too much for them. And that's fine. If they can't handle it, they shouldn't play with me. So a lot of people stay away from me, and that's good. But I've had a few people who really insisted on playing with me, and I think it was because they had some idea in their head that I would accentuate their obnoxious garbage, or that, playing with me would give them some kind of credit in the scene or something, whatever their reasons were. And I open-mindedly took that on, but once we started playing, it was fucking garbage. And my reaction to that is, that's when you say no to a player instead of yes and. I've had a few where I've said no to the player. It's not pretty. It's not good music. I would rather not be in that situation.
So what happens during a show if you see it falling apart or whatever? Do you just stop the show, or you try to salvage it, or?
if I think the person sucks and they're an asshole, I might spend the whole set like trying to make them look like one. I mean, I haven't done this. I haven't done this very often because I haven't had to. Most people I play with are good to great. You know, like I've played with a lot of awesome musicians, many more than bad ones. So
you would never stop the show
wood.
then? You wouldn't like get up and...
I mean, I'm just thinking of the few concrete times when I played with people where I was like, this stinks. Like, I'm actually mad about this, that they're wasting my time and wasting the audience's time. I mean, look, if I like you, I'm a pretty nice guy, I think. But if I don't like you, yikes, you know, you better run. So it's sort of the same thing with music. It's like, oh God, you know, if you're a clown, you better fucking run pretty quick, because I can be not very nice in those situations. I don't know, you know, I seem to have this rep with some people for being such an asshole, but you got to think, like, if I was an asshole to you, you might want to take a look at yourself and what you were doing to get that reaction, because I'm really tolerant and I'm really friendly. You know, I mean, I'm in music to communicate with people. I'm not in it to act like, oh yeah, I'm the best, I'm king shit, you know, like, you suck. I mean, there's part of that, but you know, mostly I liked it because I communicate with music, and there's so many people that I can communicate with. It's a great privilege, and you know, I try to take people at face value before I judge them. You know, so if I'm mean to somebody, they probably did something to piss me off.
So we've been
Seriously.
talking about your jazz improv, free jazz. Let's talk about some of your more intense stuff.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with Incinethrack?
Well, I guess I'm gonna officially say I'm in that band. It's been a bit of a secret, I guess, for a while. Incinethrack. Yeah, I mean, it's we kept the identities of the band members on the DL for many years. We had this whole narrative going that we were this band from Columbus, Ohio, and had these alternate names and stuff like that. That was just a lark. When we started that band in the early 2010s, we all liked really horrible, garbagey, brutal death metal a lot. Okay. And I like it because it's not sophisticated. I like it because it's puerile, fast, ugly, stupid noise. That's why I like it.
Okay.
And yeah, and same, Colin and Mick dug it too, because there's a certain extremity through that mindset that you can't do with like smart, self-aware guys. You know, there's like a power that comes from that total ignorance that like I'm really into, you know. So you know, we liked that style, and we also liked how ambitious a lot of that stuff was musically, but we thought, geez, you know, it's funny, they're playing all these complicated riffs, but it just sounds like
Yeah.
And we're like, we just thought, why don't we just improvise this stuff? So the early Incinethrack stuff is just, it's free improvisation in the style of brutal death metal. That's all it is.
I thought
you know?
it's not anymore. I thought this was improv.
Well, we've had a few different. Boy, I'm really giving up all the secrets on Incinethrack tonight. I hope I don't get fired. But then again, you said what, like 15 people are listening? So hey, whatever.
We're at
just having a
13
little
right
chat.
now. We're at 13.
Yeah, see, there you go. So with the Incinethrack thing, we've always, you know, we do like this music and we play it because we like it. It's not all a joke. There's a humorous aspect to it, but it's not like, this stuff sucks. Eh. We actually make it because we like it. And we thought that if we divorced our personas from it, because people associate the members of the band with certain things, and some of them don't like it, that we thought it would be better if people took it at face value and just heard it as this like crazy, free, brutal death metal. So that was the reason behind not really telling people, the main reason why we didn't tell people who we were for a long time. We don't really admit it now, and there's a lot of, you know, it's a little wishy-washy. Some people still don't know it's us, some people do, whatever. But, you know, the newer stuff, we always try to have an interesting angle on that music, because if you're just doing the same thing over and over, it's kind of like, yeah, whatever, you know. So we try to find different angles. And the new album, the second album, which just came out pretty recently.
Yeah, back in October.
Yeah, however it's pronounced. I don't try to pronounce the names of any of the stuff other than the band name.
Thoraki, Thorati, Thoraki?
That is correct, I think. We did that in a different way. We thought it would be cool if it was more composed. And I'm going to cram it in if you guys miss it. We went into the studio and we improvised it all. Then we deleted the guitars and redid them, and then the guys they composed the guitar parts of the drums. Okay, so that's how it worked out. I'm not really supposed to talk about it, but that was sort of a rapidly
Why is it such a
ejaculated
secret?
version of how we.
Why aren't you able to talk about this stuff?
Because it's like telling people there's no Santa Claus or something, man. It's not. It's like. And Incenifrac has a vibe, and it's like, part of me doesn't want to demystify that vibe by like saying, well, we did it this way, and the Emperor has no clothes. I played all those drums. That's just me playing the drums. You can look on YouTube. I can do it. It's not
we're showing
like,
the video right now of you playing live.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did that show at, we did that show with Brodequin, and that was hilarious, man. We fucking went nuts. It was great. We can do that stuff. It's not like there's no studio trickery.
Yeah, you're
We're
not
all
like
insane.
doing tricks and stuff.
No, it's just I can do that on the drums, so I did it. And I like it. It sounds cool. I listen to those records. I love them. We made them because we like them.
What's been the metal community's opinion of it so far?
It's been wildly successful.
Right? It's crazy, dude. You didn't even really do promotion and stuff for this, and I saw it all over my feed constantly.
Nah, it's crazy. And it's funny because we've only played like 5 times ever. Every time we've gotten together, we've recorded, and that's like all our output. You know what I mean? It's like we don't practice. We've been doing let me put it this way. We've been doing this for what, like 8 years, and we played together like 6 times or 7 times total, including the gigs. I don't know. But it doesn't need to be more than that. It's when we do it, it's really fresh and inspired, and we feel like we're really on the spot to like come up with the stuff, and it's a good vibe. It makes the end result. What matters is the end result and how good it sounds, and we all care about it. And if people don't like it, we don't fucking care. It's not for them. Like it's for the people who do like it, and it's for us. So it's all good.
This is probably the most intense death metal I've heard. The improvisation brings such a, I don't know how to explain it. It's way crazier than like if you actually sat down and wrote out riffs and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. Makes it really, really fucking intense, man.
Well, let me say one thing about it, which is because metal is so competitive, there's already bands that are trying to outdo us, and I think it's awesome.
Nice.
I found on Bandcamp there's a band called Effluence, and I'm not sure if they're inspired directly by Incenifrac, but
we just lost him. Nice. So, chat, what do you guys think about Incenifrac? Oh, here we go.
Yeah. Well, the band Effluence, they're doing this crazy free brutal death metal, and it's kind of like a little more violent than what we do, and I'm kind of like, way to go, guys, to run with it, Just no competition. We're just doing what we do. If people take what we do and they take it further, right on. That's how metal should be. It should always be pushed further in some interesting direction. I'm all for it. So.
I feel like y'all are the first ones to actually do this, like improv brutal death metal. I don't think that's ever existed before. Have you ever heard of it?
Not really. There's been dark, dissonant. Like a lot of my improvised music can be pretty dense, but it's not really idiomatic like brutal death metal. It's more whatever it is. And Incenifrac is definitely directly influenced by brutal death metal, period, and slam and like all that kind of stuff. So
that's crazy.
That's
you say that you're influenced by slam.
Oh, everyone in Incenifrac likes slam, to a degree. Sure, why not?
That's awesome.
the bubbling water filter vocals rule. I'm totally into that, Yeah, I'm way into that. Machine guns
That's
and
awesome.
bubbling water filters. I'm totally into it. So, we were directly influenced by that stuff, and we do like it. So yeah, we probably are the first, I guess.
I think you are, yeah. It's like breaking new ground, man.
Well, there was Anal Cunt, right?
Was that improvised? I honestly never really listened to it.
Originally, most of it was, yeah. I mean, originally they didn't really have songs, and then they started eventually working in like more stuff. But the original Anal Cunt stuff was all making fun of grindcore, and they're just like, oh, we can. It's kind of the same thing. Like we can do that without even rehearsing. Like who cares, I mean, they had little shticks and little jokes and little riffs at the beginning, but most of it was just like, just made up crap. They were just like, fuck it,
So we're going to move on to the next topic, but before that, I had a question in chat. Any future plans for a Lydia lunch? That shit rips so fucking hard.
This epidemic took a lot of wind out of the sails for a lot of things. I've been playing with Lydia for about 8 years now. I think 8 years. And we've done a lot of gigs. We've played around the world. We've done a lot of stuff. We did Teenage Jesus and the Jerks a couple of times, which was a high point for me because they're one of my favorite bands. Retrovirus was kind of the main thing that we were doing for a long time. I don't know. I mean, we would like to play again, but right now the epidemic makes it hard to even consider doing even a show, let alone a tour. So we see Lydia all the time. She lives in New York. She's Lydia. She's Lydia. So, she's a character. I mean, she's an original, and love her or hate her, she is an original, and she's stuck to her guns, and she is she's a character, man. Everything you think she is, she's probably 2 times that. Let me put it that way.
So how did you get involved with Behold the Octopus?
Well, I knew Colin. Colin liked Flying Lutenbachers back in the day when we were doing stuff like Infection and Decline. We were on tour a lot, and Colin probably saw us, or we played with early Behold the Octopus. I don't really remember. I'd have to check my notes, but Colin and I just got in touch, and we liked some of the same music. I mean, I was really into death metal at that point, and a lot of the people in my scene were not into that shit. They were kind of like, what's this crap? I started listening to extreme metal probably around 1994, and I was a late comer because I was kind of on the punk side of the tracks, like punk versus metal. Like I was like, oh, heavy metal's like what, and punk's, like hard. So I was against metal for a long time. But my friend Kevin Drum in 1993 actually played me Legion by Deicide, and I instantly was like, holy shit, this is what I want to listen to. This stuff rules. So I went in pretty deep into death metal from that point. But a lot of my friends were just like, huh, what is this crap? This, like, heavy metal? Like, what are you talking about? It took a long time for that crossover thing to happen, but I was always proselytizing for extreme metal. I loved, and I was into, like, the early second wave of black metal stuff, like Mayhem and Immortal and Dark Throne and all that crap. But I really like death metal. I'm into, like, Deicide and, I don't trust people who are only into black metal and don't like death metal. I think there's something wrong with those people. They're like not in it. They're like missing some of the point or something. But anyways, Colin knew I was into extreme metal, but I was also into like prog and noisy stuff, modern classical. So we had stayed in touch and through the years and worked together on stuff, and we're friends. And finally I'd moved to New York, and you know what? I think we decided that before I was moving to New York. I knew that Charlie was out, and I got a hold of Colin, and I said, hey, man, I'd be willing to play in Behold the Octopus, as long as we do, like, brutal shit. Like, I'm totally into it. And he said, yeah, absolutely. So we rehearsed for 2 years before we played a gig.
Damn, dude.
Yeah. It was a lot of work. I don't regret it. It was awesome. The only reason why I left the band was because I had too much shit going on in my life at one point, and I was kind of like, there was playing that material, for a drummer, you're like really, I mean, it's ridiculous. You have to be in shape and you have to know this stuff like the back of your hand. So it took a lot of work. It was like a 20-hour-a-week job, just doing Behold the Octopus.
So none of that is improvised?
Oh, no, okay. Not really, no. I mean, on the album I'm on, Horror Ascension, there's like kind of like one noise track that's just like kind of Colin made out of studio stuff. But all those songs, they're all written out completely. Like every fill, on Colin's songs, every fill is written out, and I play the fills that he wrote for the most part. Very little embellishment. On my song, same thing. I mean, most of that stuff, there's almost no improvisation. It's totally composed, even the drum parts, drum fills. Yeah, sure. So basically, you have to learn this stuff. It's really awkward, and you have to get to the point where it's kind of natural. And that was the thing with Behold the Octopus, is playing really complex music like it's natural and brutal and all that stuff. I'm really proud of it. Sometimes I'm like, gee, I wish I hadn't quit, because I would have liked to have seen where it's going, but I was just at a point in my life where I couldn't really handle it anymore because I had too much shit going on. So, we're totally still friends. I love those guys. They're great. And I really like the new stuff. I think it's very bizarre and amazing.
It is pretty bizarre.
It's out of left field. I mean, it's not even metal anymore. It's like some mutant music from hell. So it's crazy shit. I love it. I think it's great. They're great guys.
It does seem like something that would be totally up your alley.
Yeah, well, it's more like modern classical music, and I think that's maybe where Colin is coming from. He's not trying to be so metal idiomatically anymore. He's really... he's a very intelligent guy. He really likes to make unusual music, and he loves it, and I am totally for him. I think he's one of the greats.
So we have a question here that we ask everybody. How do you dress your hot dogs?
My preferred thing would probably be like that chili that doesn't really have beans in it. It's just like the chili sauce meat that's kind of like sawdust.
Okay.
With
wait, sawdust?
Well, it's kind of like, it's just crumbly stuff to hold the chili powder in the grease. So we put some of that on top, and then probably like Cheese Whiz, I think.
Okay, that's
it.
Alrighty.
That's
no
it. Just
pickles,
slide it on down.
No ketchup or anything like that. Alright.
Nah, just wolf that thing down.
Okay.
Slide it right down
down your gullet.
Yeah, just right down the poop chute there. Just really, just let it rip. Yeah.
So, what was the best show you ever played?
Oh God, I don't know. That's really impossible to say. I've had plenty of shows where I didn't think it was my best show. In fact, that's probably the majority of them. God, I would really have to, the best shows are the ones where you just feel good about what happened, and maybe it's something more than the playing, like it was something that was going on in the room or a feeling or something like that. I mean, I'd really have to check my notes.
What about your biggest show?
My biggest show? Probably South America with Lydia Lunch, I think. I mean, we played some really insane shows down there. Oh God. Yeah, we played some really insane shows down there. Insane on so many levels. I would have to say probably Tim Dahl is really good at the stats. He would probably be able to tell me. But we played some pretty big shows in South America, and it's not like they were all Lydia Lunch fans. It's just in certain places like Brazil, Sao Paulo, stuff like that, people just go out, and they go to the show, and like our show was a show that a lot of people went to, and it was crazy, and it was awesome.
How many people do you think came out? What's the ballpark?
Oh God, thousands, I would think.
Damn, that's crazy.
Tim's really good at the stats. I'm not good at this stuff, so maybe I'm blowing it up, but I think those might have been pretty big shows. I mean, I've been on tours opening for Sonic Youth, Peaches, so I played in some rooms where there was a lot of people. Flying Lutenbachers did shows opening for the OCs, and that was huge. So, I don't know. I don't really trip out. I don't bug out on the size of the audience, whether it's small or large. I'm kind of there to do the thing on stage. I'm not there to, be concerned necessarily with how many people are there, especially if there's a lot of people. It's all like kind of the same to me. It's like, okay, there's a lot of people here, woohoo. It's like, it doesn't matter exactly how many there are. It's like, okay, people are watching, let's do this thing. I mean, sometimes when you care about something and nobody's there, it can kind of bug you out for a minute just because you're like, oh, fuck. But then once you get into the music, you do the music. You're there to do it. You're not there to like be like, oh, if there's not 200 people here, I refuse to play. You know, like it's bullshit. You
right,
know?
you get locked in, you kind of block everything else out.
Look, man, my career is so schizophrenic. One week I'll play to like thousands of people in South America, and the next week I'll play an improv show to 3 people. I mean, it's just like, whatever, you know, it's all over the place.
What about what's your worst show? The worst show you played?
The worst show I ever played? I don't know if I want to remember that. Probably my worst shows are where I feel like I look like I'm made to look like an asshole on stage for some reason. And sometimes it's other people's fault and not mine. And I feel like it was disappointing and not well received and everything, like it was a waste of time. Like nothing was good about it. Those happen every once in a while, but it's not that frequent, you know? Honestly, most of the times when it happened, it was because somebody let me down. It wasn't that I fucked up or anything. It was like somebody else was fucking around on stage and
got any
was not
stories
good.
Or whatever? You don't have to say people's names, but you know, any
yeah, I mean, I almost got into a fist fight on stage with a band member at one point about 15 years ago. There was a guy in one of my bands I was in who was like a former member of the band who we brought back in because we were having some lineup changes, and we were like, all right, let's give him a chance. That'll be cool. And it turned out he was a total dick. And he had bad ego problems. He was very competitive with me for some reason. And at one point, he started, you know, like we were trying to get the show to go on. I was like, come on, you guys, let's go. Are you ready? And he said something in front of an audience to insult me. And the audience went, ooh. And I was like, there's like smoke coming out of my ears. It's like, if you're going to do one thing, it's like, you don't humiliate your band member on stage. Like, right? That's fucked up, you know? That's basically like, you're losing the thread completely at that point. Like, you might as well just get off stage if that's where you're at, you know what I mean? It's not cool for a number of reasons. And I've been a dick to people on stage, but, you know, I try to realize that there's an audience there and they don't need to see your dirty laundry like that. You know, it's, you gotta figure out better ways to deal with it. But this guy was really immature and he was egotistical. And I wound up actually like pushing one of his cymbals into his face. And like, we almost got into a fight on stage. And basically I went to the other guys in the band. I was like, this guy fucking sucks. He's out. And they're like, yeah, you're right. And we fired him, sent him home. That was it. You know?
Nice. What about
so that sucked. It was really disappointing to me because then like the whole tour was kind of ruined because I had to go on stage with this person that I hated every night, and like I didn't respect him and he didn't respect me, and it's like that doesn't make for good music, you know? I mean, we did it, but like
crap.
Yeah, it's a bummer. But, dude, I've been in so many bands, like this shit has to happen sometimes, you know? Yeah. I mean, it's not the majority of the narrative, you know? Most of my band members that I played with, I'm still friends with them, or, you know, like they're my friends, you know? So it's cool overall, you know?
Well, you seem like a nice guy, man. I wouldn't think that you'd be a dick or whatever.
Try to be.
Try
to be.
What about like a bad show where like the venue messed up? Like it wasn't you guys playing or whatever, but like power shortages or like crazy crowds or something like anything like that?
Oh boy. Man, I would probably have a million stories about that. I mean, being on tour is kind of like war sometimes because you're really battling everything and everybody to just do this thing that you set out to do under like the worst conditions. I mean, there's so many war stories, I wouldn't even know where to begin. I've suffered some pretty bad situations and contexts over my 30 years of being a professional musician. I have slept on some very disgusting floors. I have suffered a lot of indignities, and honestly, I'm a little over it. Like I kind of won't, you know, I paid a lot of dues and I kind of won't do that shit anymore. It's not like a rock star thing of like, I need $1 million or some bullshit like that. But it's more like there's a certain level where I won't go below because I already did that, you know, and it's like,
you're getting too old for it.
That. I'm older. Yeah, it's like I'm 48, man. I don't want to sleep on a dirt floor like on tour. I'm sorry. I don't see why that's so crazy. It's like,
agreed.
Whatever. Worst show, because I mean, sometimes venues don't want you to be there, and they kind of let you know that, and then you have to play with them being assholes. So they like
cut your set off or whatever, like y'all in the middle playing and they'll like shut off the speakers.
Or the sound guy like barely even gets it going and walks out on you, or like, I don't know, all kinds of crap happens. I mean, sometimes promoters try to rip you off. I mean, we've got stories about hunting down promoters and forcing them to pay us the money they guaranteed us. Dude, there's so much stuff. I mean, I gotta say once again, a lot of times things go fine. It's not like every show is a ridiculous disaster, but it's not. But stuff happens. I don't even know where to begin. You're like asking me these questions. It's like I would literally have to get my notes and be like, well, this, like,
I figured you might have something on the top of your
trap.
Head. I gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, so much stuff has happened I can't remember it all. That's why I wrote a lot of stuff down. I made a lot of records because those are my reference points for a lot of things.
Well, let's try one more question here. What's the weirdest place you've played?
The weirdest place I've played?
Yeah. I think right now the winner is a children's school in front of 10th grade, or what was it, 8th graders maybe, or something like that. A metal band playing in front of a bunch of kids. Oh no, it was an elementary school with 6th graders. Yeah.
You're killing me because I really would have to look at my notes for this. I'm sure I could think of a dozen places that are totally insane. I mean, I've done a lot of DIY stuff where shows were being held at very unusual sites. Like, I mean, I can't even think of it. I mean, I played shows in really weird places because there were these DIY things where they're like, okay, we're going to do a show on the beach or, in some weird building that doesn't make any sense, or fuck, man. I would have to look at my notes.
You're good.
There's just too much stuff. I mean, this is stuff for a book, really, because
it sounds like you could write a book about your life. Jesus. You do. You have one coming out. Yeah.
If it ever, I don't know about that. I mean, if it ever slows down enough to do that, maybe, but I'm still living life, I'm still moving forward. So I'm not like a washed up person like Kim Gordon from Sonic Youth who has to write their bio now because their career's over, like it's, I still have some things left to do here.
So what was the last album you listened to?
I fell asleep to this album by Wayne Horvitz called No Place Fast. Wayne Horvitz was a keyboard player that's kind of known from the downtown New York new music scene, but he comes from the West Coast, and there was kind of an interesting circle of players out there, and I knew one of the guys that I used to play with him, and his name was Mark Miller. He died some years back, but he was a very interesting character and a drummer, and I was happy to meet him and play with him. So I did what I often do with people, which is when I get interested in obscure musicians, I track down like everything they're on. So I got this record because Mark Miller was on it, who is a friend of mine, and it's from like 1979 or something. And he was just an interesting character, so I was just getting a little sentimental thinking about Mark, so I pulled this CD out that he was on and kind of took a nap listening to it, so yeah.
What was your album, or if you have a couple of them, what were your albums of the year for last year?
Ooh, I don't like a lot of people's music right now. In fact, hardly at all. My year-end lists are always really mean. They're like whatever I'm obsessed with, which is not current music. Like 2020 was all about 1970 Who recordings, like the Who live at Isle of Wight, the Who live at Woodstock, the Who live at Leeds, the Who.
I did see you posted some videos of that on your YouTube channel.
That, my friends are so sick of hearing me talk about the fucking Who. They're like this band that everyone takes for granted, but for 1 year, they were kind of killing it. They were like destroying it, and it was an accident. They didn't even it's not even what they wanted to do. It was just like they were taking market forces and like, gee, people like Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix, let's take some acid and play, they were like accidentally this awesome band between 1969 and 1970, and I just to me, it's like a revelation. It's like I needed, when I found that stuff and I really connected with it last year, I really needed it at that point. It really sustained me. So, you know, like I think my year end list for 2020 was just all Who bootlegs from 1970, you know, like, or I don't know.
Why does the Who speak to you so much?
Well, in 1970, they were an extremely aggressive band, and I think they set a benchmark for kind of like musicality and aggression, like in 1970. And I think a lot of their songs that they had in the set at that point were very clever, amazing compositions, particularly Tommy, the rock opera. I kind of think that's pretty awesome music. It's kind of genius. I mean, especially live in 1970, because they're playing it with just stripped down bass, guitar, drums, vocals. I mean, it's so raw. And, you know, like Isle of Wight, I could talk about this all night. Isle of Wight, they were doing tons of drugs that day. They got dosed with LSD. And you can tell that by the time they got on stage, Keith Moon, the drummer, was on tons and tons of speed. And it's just, they start with Heaven and Hell at the beginning of Isle of Wight, and it's like a fucking all-out war. I mean, it's just like such an exhilarating, like, that's why I always want my bands to be like, we come out and the first note, it's like on, you know what I mean? That's like always my goal. So it's just great to see the inspiration of somebody really doing that shit and just like fucking going for it. It just really inspires me, you know? And I hadn't really obsessed about that stuff yet. So it was like, it turned on a switch and I just followed it through. So.
Alrighty. Music of 2020's 50-year-old music. It's all good.
Yep. Exactly. I don't know. I don't really like a lot of current stuff. I mean, I kind of vaguely pay attention to extreme metal, but I kind of dropped off a little. I mean, I keep my eyes open. I'm always checking shit out, but I don't know. Maybe I'm a dinosaur, you know, like my aesthetic is kind of maybe it's from a bygone era, and I don't know. I like what I like. I can't help it. I check out his stuff.
Do you listen to mathcore at all, like Dillinger Escape Plan, stuff like that, Psyopus?
I have checked all that stuff out. You know, like Ion Dissonance and all that kind of stuff. Okay. I mean, I checked all that stuff out when it came out, and there were things that were appealing about it to me, but like a lot of it didn't stick. You know, the reason, you know, when I write complex music, a lot of what I'm doing is I'm trying to use a small amount of material and make it into a lot of variations. And the reason why I do that is so that it's coherent, so that even if you don't know it, you can kind of feel that there's a coherence compositionally. And I feel like a lot of the mathcore bands are just kind of just stringing a lot of ideas in no particular order, like in a line to achieve an effect of disruption and shock and change and stuff like that. And I like that. But I feel like the reason why it doesn't stick to me is because I don't feel like there's any more coherence beyond that. And it doesn't, it's like, I like it as an effect, but it doesn't resonate with me as like, that's a good composition or a song. You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
so I'm
I
like
gotcha.
kind of half in. Like, I like the effort, I like the precision, I like the virtuosity, I like the changes, I like all that crap, but in a weird way, you still got to write a good song, you know, if I want to hear it more than once, right? Like something like that.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Like,
so that's,
different variations on the riff or whatever. It makes a lot of sense.
Well, it's just like, you know, it's just when you hear a band that you like, you can tell it's them immediately, generally, right? And it's because they've kind of boiled down their aesthetic to a certain thing. And I think that like a lot of bands have a sound, but they don't really have, like their material doesn't really cut it necessarily, like as far as something that you want to hear again, or yeah, everyone's different. So it's really subjective, you know, like I'm sure plenty of people think everything I've ever done is unlistenable crap. I'm sure there's somebody that exists in the world that thinks that. But most people haven't even heard most of my shit, so they wouldn't even have an opinion. They'd base it on like 5 things they heard, whatever. Everyone's got their opinions. You know, like some people like this, some people don't, blah, blah, blah. I just think that that's just my explanation with like the mathcore stuff. Like I like a lot of things about it, but I have yet to hear a lot of those things where there's actual songs that I want to hear twice. It's more like an experience of like, whoa, these guys are sick, you know? But a lot of stuff's like that, you know?
Oh, I was going to say, isn't it like improv jazz?
Yeah.
Like, isn't that similar?
Yeah,
it's not like super connected?
Yeah, but there's like a big timbral difference, I guess. with improvised jazz, part of the appeal of it is specifically the timbre of the music, the same way that with, like mathcore bands could be, because people want to hear screaming and like loud guitars and like intense drums and stuff. So, like for me though, with that kind of stuff, I want to hear De Mysterious Dom Satanas by Mayhem for the 100th time because I love those songs or whatever, you know what I mean? Or I want to hear Obscura by Gorguts, or I want to hear, like such and such, because in a weird way, maybe if I gave the mathcore stuff more time, the compositions would sink in, but since I only like it like on a sort of novelty basis, I haven't really listened to a lot of that stuff so much that it's sunk in. It's just different. It's like some things appeal to you more than others, and sometimes you can explain it, sometimes you can't. I don't know.
I got you.
I'm not against it. It's just I kind of want to hear a good. If the rock band is playing shit that they rehearsed, I kind of want to hear a good composition or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Not really. I kind of thought you'd be into it.
Yeah.
Like Dillinger and stuff like that seems like stuff that'd be right up your alley.
Well, in the mid 90s when they came out, I saw them at Milwaukee Metal Fest in 1998, and they fucking destroyed. It was totally insane.
Oh yeah, they're crazy.
Think about it. 1998, Dillinger Escape Plan.
Right.
They were just like, that first album on Relapse came out, and they were out there killing it. It was like unbelievable. It was literally like they destroyed the audience in the middle of the afternoon. Like everyone was like blown away. It was fucking incredible. But like I listened to that record and I like it. I appreciate it. It's very complex. It's very violent. It's crazy. It never stuck to me further beyond that. And I respect those guys for doing that shit. Because when it came out, it was like a total breath of fresh air. They blew me away live. I thought it was incredible. I don't know. It's really esoteric, man, to think why you could put two songs that are kind of like each other next to each other and you like one more than the other. It's just some shit like that,
Yeah, I got you. It's all subjective. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
That's about all I had. Did you have anything else you want to touch on?
I don't know. Anybody got any more questions? Basically, the near future for me is the new Lutenbockers album, Negative Infinity, comes out probably in April or May, and I would call it a brutal prog album. So,
are you guys gonna be dropping a single beforehand, or just dropping it all at once? Okay.
Maybe. Yeah. And there's some reissues, like the first free jazz one live at WNUR is coming out on vinyl in like a week. I have an Italian label that does reissues. They also did Incarceration by Abstraction, the one that you mentioned. And they're going to do Cataclysm.
You've got a record label yourself. Oh my god, I just forgot the name.
Ugg Explode, yes. Ugg Explode Record.
And that's where you release all the Flying Lutenbachers stuff from, right?
Yes, and I put out a lot of my other rock bands, like Cellular Chaos, Burmese. I put out like improvised music records. I put out all kinds of solo records, like all kinds of stuff. And for a while, I was even putting out other bands' records, but that was kind of a time and a place. Mostly now I just stick to Flying Lutenbachers stuff and occasional like improvised music projects. It's pretty casual, so there's been about 80 releases.
Pretty casual. There's been 80 releases, Yeah,
well, it's also been 30 years. 30 years.
That's true. That's true. It's a lot of time.
This shit adds up, buddy.
Well, so if you're looking for the weirdest, most insane music you've ever heard, you should check out Thrak3 Eat Three whatever by Encina Thrak, which came out back in October. And be on the lookout for the new album from the Flying Lutenbachers. Your projects are on Spotify, all the streaming websites. Actually, Flying Lutenbachers isn't on Spotify, is it?
Not the new stuff. Bandcamp is the place to go. Weaselwalter.bandcamp.com has so many things you'll get lost. You'll drown in my material there.
Have you just not had the chance to upload it to Spotify yet, or are you like?
No, I don't really see the point of being on Spotify. I think that I don't know. I just don't really care about Spotify. I think that if people want to find my music, a lot of it's on YouTube. Like I'm not a queen about like, oh, they're not paying for my music. It's not like that. Something about Spotify. Everyone complains about it, but they put their music on it. I'm like, well, what's wrong with you? Like, if you don't want it to be on there, don't give it to them. Like, you can't complain about it and then still give your music to Spotify. Like, don't be a pussy. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think I was just being contrarian. I was like, I'm not gonna put my music on Spotify. Fuck it. There's no great reason. I mean, it's just like, whatever. Weasel being Weasel. I don't know. Everyone else is doing it. I'm not gonna. Meh.
So, what streaming services do have it besides Bandcamp, or is it just Bandcamp?
The ones where you gotta pay. But no, I mean, you can check out all my shit on YouTube. I have thousands of live videos on YouTube. Like, I'm way over documented. Like, you'll trip over my shit. You'll be like, oh God, enough of this guy, you know, so.
You're also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Any other social plugs that we're missing?
Pornhub.
Oh, okay. You got your Pornhub. Your OnlyFans.
Yeah, that's my nude stuff.
Improvisation in a different way.
I'm kidding. My mom's listening and she does not want to hear this stuff. I am not on Pornhub. That was a joke. That was me being an edgelord. Come on.
As for me, drop my channel, follow so you always know when I go live. You can also sub to get access to exclusive emotes and the interviews before they hit YouTube and the streaming websites. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. YouTube, folks, if you liked it, please drop a like and subscribe and tickle the notification bell. Check out my music, The Sound That Ends Creation, at thesoundthatenscreation@bandcamp.com. My next guest is math rock band Champagne Colored Cars from Atlanta, Georgia. Join us this Sunday, the 24th at 7 p.m. Central, right here at twitch.tv/thecassetanscreation. Thanks for being here, Weasel. Hope you had a good time.
Thank you, buddy. It was fun.
And thank you guys for watching and listening.